Thank you all for attending the conference and for your continuing support of the New York State Brewers Association. Welcome to What Taproom Guests Want in 2024. I'm your moderator for today's panel. My name is Matt Roselle. I'm the Operations Director of the Long Island Brewers Guild and a brewery insurance producer for the James F. Sutton Agency. James F. Sutton Agency is a family-owned independent insurance agency and a 9-year allied member of the SBA, as well as a member of the New York City and the Long Island Brewers Guilds. Today's format will be a panel discussion followed by a brief period of audience questions if we have time remaining at the end. Try to keep it mostly to the panel, but if you have a quick add in, feel free. Andrew's cool with that. I'm going to introduce our panel now. Our panel today will be led by Andrew Coplon. Andrew is the founder of Secret Hopper and Craft Beer Professionals. Andrew helps breweries nationwide create more memorable and profitable taproom experiences using data-based insights gathered from thousands of visits. He has successfully built a community of 17,000 craft beer professionals dedicated to the growth and betterment of our industry across the United States. Joining Andrew today are Dawn Schulz, Paul Grenier, and Andrew Burman. Dawn Schulz is the co-owner of Prison City Brewing in Auburn, New York. Prison City opened in 2014, added production and brewery and tap room, also in Auburn in 2020, and is currently opening a third location in Lake Placid, New York. Dawn has a BS in Business Management and Economics. She is a BJCP beer judge and certified Cicerone, and is a member of the Girls Pint Out and Pink Boot Societies. For Dawn, opening Prison City was about building a community with which to share her love of craft beer and the culture and experiences of the craft beer industry. Paul Grenier is the co-owner and CEO of Mortalis Brewing Company. Paul has a background in corporate America and project management with over 25 years experience in those fields. Mortalis was founded in 2018 and prides itself on brewing creative and exciting beers that foster human connection. And Andrew Burman is the COO and co-founder of Other Half Brewing. Other Half Brewing Company was founded in 2014 in Brooklyn, New York, with the unofficial motto of "We Sell Beer." Andrew has a culinary background as a chef and a restaurateur. He oversees daily operations and logistics of the wholesale and retail distribution divisions, along with the day-to-day management of of business and performance and strategy. And without further ado, I will hand it off to the panel.
Thanks, Matt. And thank all of you for being here. For everyone who was here the past hour with Michael Varda's talk, he shared some great data. We hope to give you some inside information about how my three panelists are, interacting with guests and making the guest experience as memorable as possible. And as we all know, the taproom landscape is changing. No longer can a brewery, you can't just simply make beer. The perfect experience now is at the intersection of both that delicious beverage, a memorable experience, and engaging staff. When you successfully understand your guest goals, expectations, and exceed them, you create a repeat customer that craves your taproom. Today, we're going to learn from these wonderful three panelists right here on what they're experiencing and strategies for success that are helping them survive. So let's dive in. We've got a lot of questions. If anybody wants to shout anything out at any point and you have a question, we'll do our best to take it. So for the three of you, how is your taproom audience changing? Looking at where we are now versus even just a few years ago, what are you seeing?
Start out a little bit. I think we all know this. Many years ago, the tap room was a novel experience. Just going to a tap room was exciting for people. Getting that craft beer was enough of an experience. Lining up to get beer, and now it's changing. People expect a craft tap room to offer many things, and so we're diversifying, we're adding more products, we're having to be a full service operation, we're having to add food, and instead of people being excited just to be in a tap room, they have a lot of expectations now.
I think we're going to talk a lot about expectations and experience today. How about you, Andrew?
Exact same thing. Other Half started in 2014 out of a shoebox in the middle of Kiwanis in Brooklyn. And we had no expectations of what to come. We thought we'd make 1,000 barrels and have a cute little brewery and be happy with that and go home. Obviously, we got bigger and things changed a lot, and expectations changed a lot. We now have 8 tap rooms from DC to Buffalo and everywhere in between, and it is that expectation. It's offering an experience. That's one of the hardest things that we've had across the board is going from where handing someone a pint of beer was enough. handing them a couple tasters was enough. Where you have a surly bartender and giving a little bit of a sarcastic response. And, you know, my favorite bartender story always is a customer comes up and says, "Well, what's your favorite IPA?" And the bartender says, "We have 18 of them." And that wasn't really helpful, and people didn't like that. We got a lot of Yelp reviews about those. So times have changed, and I think that's the landscape has really harkened back to my original career as a chef and working in fine dining, where you have to present a great experience. That's staff trainings, that's meetings, that's setting expectations for our own staff. That's where we've been concentrating the last year or so on with our own staff, is training. We've had a huge push for onboarding, hiring the right people for things.
We'll definitely get into that.
Yeah, for sure, hiring practices in some category. But that's what we've been concentrating on, is sort of getting people who want to be there, who want to have an experience, want to provide an experience, and set the company up to be successful. We believe we're a great company to work for. We believe we have a great product, we believe we have fun stuff, and we just want someone to be an ambassador to that every time they come in. So.
I like how you mentioned it takes you back to your career as a chef. I imagine quite a few of you, who's read Unreasonable Hospitality? The book? No one? Everybody should read that book. It's a great read after this session. So Paul, what are your thoughts on what the guests are looking for these days?
Definitely people. I mean, you don't want to, it's easy for all of us to try to resist change. But I guess the best advice I could give is to not try to buck the change, like accept it and embrace it, because it's coming, whether or not you want it to be there or not, and it's going to happen. So we attended the presentation earlier in this room about Gen Z and what exactly they were looking for, and I think that understanding each demographic and what each drinker kind of wants is super important, and you need to meet them at that moment. And we were having a little fun with one of my favorite quotes from Snoop Dogg, and he was out there doing an interview, and one piece of advice he gave was that you've got to meet the person where they're at. So if they're super excited and super pumped up, then you need to meet them there. Your taproom staff needs to meet them there. And if they're low key and just chill, then that's okay to be there as well. But you've got to meet the moment for them, and that's really, really important, and getting on their level.
When Paul first quoted Snoop Dogg, I actually didn't believe him, so I was Googling it while we were in the Zoom. It's true what he says there. So, we talk about Michael's data that we just saw, and we talk about understanding how the guest is changing, the new guests that are coming in. But how are you actively knowing what your guests want? Are you asking them questions? What strategies do you all do in your tap rooms to better understand your guest expectations and how you can best serve them?
I think a lot of this for us, the microphone wasn't on the first time, sorry. Still learning. The information that we're really pulling out is a lot more data from our POS systems. We have been really blessed to have great accounting department, but what was really important was to be able to categorize our POS correctly and see what people are bringing in to use their tabs correctly. So we're able to gather a lot more information from that. And knowing that we have several locations, we know the demographics in that area, and we're able to match up what people are drinking, what times of day, what our tap list should be, which has really, really been helpful for our production schedules. So we know that in the summer, we're gonna need 3 or 4 lines of low ABV stuff, 2 to 3 Pilsners, whatever it might be, and produce that accordingly. So that, before, 8 years ago, our POS system was like IPA number 1, IPA number 2, IPA number 3, and that really was not helpful. And then I think about 4 or 5 years ago, we got much more robust into it and categorized things correctly, and we're able to glean information about that and make decisions off of that, which is really important for all of us, because it's only one thing having the information, it's the next thing being able to decipher it and move on.
Are you primarily using the POS data for like product mix and seeing what you're selling? Is there other analytics from it that you like looking at?
We use our POS system for a lot, whether it's garnering email, I don't know if you guys, I don't know who in this room is using an email list and sending out emails, but we have found it incredibly helpful, more than we ever would thought in the marketing consultant that we have. We have unbelievable amount of open rates for what we are. We have unbelievable amount of people interacting with it, even if it's just a t-shirt you're selling, or we do sell beer online, but if it's a t-shirt or it's a new piece of merch or a new beer drop, it's unbelievable that you people are in your tap room and have signed up for your mailing list. They want information from you, which goes along with that whole Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, I will second what he's saying. If you're not collecting emails, find a way to do it. Just find some sort of motivation you can give, because they're just not going to give it to you. You got to give them maybe a coaster, a sticker, just a koozie, or 10% off their next purchase. Some reason to be cool by giving you that email address. That way you have, access to them when Facebook shuts down. Everybody remember that a few weeks ago? Like, what did you do? What did we do for those few hours? You got to be prepared. Like, what if you had a really big event you need to promote that day? You got to have other ways to reach them. They should be part of your marketing mix there.
But all of that has let us have more information about, be able to use our POS, more information for mailing lists and all that stuff has really been helpful to decipher, to figure out what we're doing. Sorry,
Similar, we do emails, we do use our POS. One thing that we just instituted about 3 months ago was a customer survey. We had never done one before, and it seems a little obvious, but we put out a customer survey and we put it on our Facebook page. We put a link. It was 10 questions, I think, and it was everything from about our service, about our food, about our offerings, and we had maybe 100 responses, which isn't great. But there were some, interesting data in there that we found. There were some outliers, but we got generally that our food was good, and we're like, our food's excellent. Wait, why aren't they saying that? So we kind of put in some practices to try to up our food game a little bit, and that was from 100 surveys.
Is there anything else that you learned from that questionnaire?
Not out of that one that I can think of. We'll get into surveys,
awesome
I'm sure, with
that.
employees, but so we look at that. We read every review that we get. Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it's great, but we do we do read every single one of them, just in case there's something that is identified many times that we need to start looking at.
We found scheduling to be extremely helpful. We actually took this, we sold this from Other Half. They were doing a really amazing job. We felt people have super busy lives. They want to know what you're doing and when you're doing it, and we started doing it with the Richmond, where we would bring out every week, we would send out an Instagram post that would be like, this day is movie night, this day is $1 off lagers, this day is can drop special release. This day is having another chef come in and do a small pop-up, but getting that information to these folks on a weekly basis so they can start planning their week or the next week around what you're going to be doing there, because they want to take part in these events. They want that stuff to be special to them, and everybody has the busy schedules, so it's super important getting that information out there to them through whatever social media platform you want to do it on. We find Instagram being, obviously, the best, as we saw, data-driven for breweries, so.
Yeah, yes.
When you guys send those mailings, or what time of day or week are you looking to get that information to?
We are on Instagram. We send out. We do weekly stuff on usually Mondays or Tuesdays, and then our mailing list, which all of you can sign up for, is right when you get on the website. It gives you a link. We do it on Fridays about noon, and that coincides with when we ship out beer. So it's on like a 4-week schedule. So 1 week we talk about the beer we're shipping. 1 week we talk about a marketing event. 1 week we talk about an individual tap room's events or what's going on, and then 1 week is my partner Sam talking about hops or something beer people care about.
If you want to go in for the deep dive, it's there. The data's there. The information is all throughout Instagram. Seriously, sit down with your phone or your laptop. Find out when your people are looking at your Instagram. All that data is there. You just have to find it. It takes a little bit of navigating to get through some of the menus for it, but boy, oh boy, will that start to determine, like, when should we put that post out? Oh, well, Monday is at around 2 o'clock. We have a tremendous amount of engagement for some strange reason. So all the analytics are there. It just takes a little bit to surf through it and get through the menus, but it's worth your time, trust me.
Yeah, I think data is going to be the secret theme of this panel today.
Seriously.
So we're not going to talk a lot about marketing, but when you do all these posts, whether they're emails, Instagram, email campaigns, Facebook posts, whatever it is, people like to see more than just beer. You know, sure, we all like to see a pretty beer that you just poured in a glass and it looks great with whatever you use around to decorate, but show smiling faces, show experiences, show the food that you have on the menu, show the other drivers that Michael mentioned a few minutes ago that are going to get people coming back to your tap room. And, you know, this is the beer industry we're in right now, but we're not going to talk a lot about beer the rest of the time. Let's talk about the non-beer aspects, you know, the service, the staff, the environment, the food, your entertainment. And I'd like to dive in first with food. And Dawn, I looked at all of your Google reviews, and looking at your Google reviews, they're great, first off. But people aren't leading with beer sometimes. They're talking about your poutine, your other things on your menu. Why is food important to you, and what do you see as a result of it?
Well, I think we first started as a pub and brewery, and our focus was on the pub part of it. We were a small 5-barrel system, so we had a full-service restaurant. We kind of started out that way, so food was an equal focus for us. And that comes from having a restaurant background, working in restaurants forever, hanging out with a lot of chefs over the years. And that's something that has just always been part of our programming. We actually opened our second location with no intention of doing a food program because we already had one 1 mile away, and that was our big mistake. We've been trying to play catch up for 3 years and figuring out how to add food to that program. We've added a food truck. We don't have a kitchen there. We can't add a hood fan. How do we make French fries? How do we do different things there? And it's been a struggle. So I think for us, and you know, kind of looking back at it, food is got to be part of everybody's program at this point.
Now I'm curious, looking at both locations, the one that didn't have food and the one where you added it eventually, and then the one that does have food, were people hanging out longer at the one with food? What other differences were you seeing in how customers were interacting?
Well, we weren't seeing a lot of people staying at the one without food. They were coming in, they were getting
Were
their
they going to your other location at least?
saying, hey, we just left the other location, or we're on our way to the other location, and which is great if they're choosing our other location, but they might have also been choosing some other restaurant to go to. So we just wanted to make sure that we were capturing them as long as we could at that spot.
Now, Andrew, at all your locations, you have quite a few different food models you work with. Give us the high level of like what you love, what you hate, what's working right.
What I hate is such a long list. We run the gamut. We have locations with no food and have very little snacks, and then we have full service restaurants. Right now, I'm literally in a fight with my CFO about whether our new location should have a kitchen or not. We took over the Young Lion space up in Canandaigua, and we took a survey of all the ex-employees there, and they were like, you need to have food, you need to have food, you need to have food. And they didn't have, they have a stubbed out kitchen, but no hood, no nothing, and we got a bill, and it's $150,000 to put a kitchen in. We're sitting there, we're like, is it worth it? You know, I am now in the camp that is 100% worth it. You have to have that full service experience. You have to have people coming in, staying there, enjoying the food, and really providing something that the restaurants around you don't. I think 2 years ago I would have said something different. Before the pandemic, I would have said something 100% different. We started in that little tap room in a shoebox with no food, surly bartenders, and we're successful in that way, luckily enough. Now I think we're competing with everybody in this room. We're all trying to get the same consumers, and we're all trying to provide the best experience. So I think if Prison City was next to us and they had food and just as good as beer, I'd probably go to Prison City. And so I think that's the one thing where we've made mistakes, but I think as we're growing, we think that the big thing is having food trucks at the minimum. We thought a bag of chips was the minimum, and now I think the minimum is sort of having a food truck on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And then having control of the experience through our food is the next sort of level we're going to.
I'm going to be giving a talk in just a little bit with Carrie Shumway. Carrie, raise your hand. Carrie can answer all your financial questions about anything. We're going to be talking about food and whether you should have a bag of chips or add a kitchen. But at the end of the day, you need to have something, because if you don't have food, like Dawn said, they're going to go to the restaurant down the street. And your goal is to keep your audience there as long as you possibly can. And your audience is changing. It's not just the beer nerd who used to be lining up for beer. It's the beer nerd, their kids, the person who doesn't drink beer, who just wants a wine. Any source of entertainment they could go to is your competition. So you got to try to attract them for as long as you possibly can with the right options. And that's by understanding what your guests want.
And I think I just want to add to that, the one thing that we've really learned is that when we started 10, 11 years ago, our consumer was like 28 years old, 29 years old, 30. And now they're in their mid-40s where they have 2 kids, they have a family, and they want more. And so I think we as a company and we as an industry have to provide more. And that's one thing that's really pushed us to the next level. Is like, if our consumer now has a little bit more money, but to our analytics, they're buying actually less. So how are we going to make sure that they might not be buying a case of beer now, but we need them to buy 2 4-packs, 2 hamburgers, some fries, stay for 2 hours, and capitalize on, and then get them onto our mailing list. That's what we're at.
Yeah, you absolutely have to evolve. Now, Paul, one thing I love at one of your locations, you literally have 4 menu items on it. 4 food menu items, I should say. Like, how did that happen that way, and why does it work?
Well, we actually have, we do food 3 different ways somehow. In the Avon location, we do have those 4 items, and we do not have like a dedicated chef for that. All of our beer tenders are trained on how to do a panini press or make pretzels and that type of thing. So tailoring it down to 4 items is probably our version of the bag of chips, as Andrew would say there. So that's one way of doing it, low key. But what I'd like to do is present you with all 3 options, because there is a lot of different ways to do it. So if you want to train your beer tenders on how to do something like that, that's totally workable. If you keep the program really small, easily attainable from stuff like Restaurant Depot and things like that, where you can put together a nice little food program and keep your costs down. The second way that we did it is at the Richmond property, and this may appeal to some other folks out there who are a little too scared to do food. We work with, I guess my project manager background will show here, I'll call them a subcontractor. We have Doughboys that we went ahead and partnered with. Doughboys is part of the Richmond. We have a structured deal with them. They pay us a certain amount of rent, and they take care of all of our food, meaning they cover the cost of the food, they cover the staffing, the plating, the cooking, everything to do with the food, and they keep all of the proceeds that go along with that food. We in turn supply all of the cocktails, beer, wine, everything else they would need to make that awesome establishment to keep people coming back. We do not have to worry about the food costs, and we do not have to worry about the quality of the food. I mean, we do, but if there's a problem, we have somebody to go to, and we can work with our partner there to make that change. This required very little investment on our part. We actually split some of that investment with Doughboys, so that we really brought them in as a true partner. And then lastly, the third way that we did it in the Buffalo program is when we put in a decent sized kitchen. We have a good 16 to 18 different menu items. We hired a chef ourselves, and I just want to blow my brains out right now for dealing with food costs. This is my first time dealing with food costs, understanding that 30-30-30-10 rule, which is 30% food costs, 30% overhead, 30% labor, and hopefully, if you're lucky, 10% profit. That's the general model that they're following. If I wanted to present all 3 to you guys so you guys can make a good educated decision about where you want to be for your food program. But there is no question, you need food, like hands down.
So rapid fire question for you 3. I know a few of you have multiple locations. Top selling food item, go. Dawn, you're first.
Hamburger.
Hamburger and french fries.
Wow, I was actually surprised for both. Wow, I guess I got to put hamburgers on the list now. For us, it's nachos. We do 3 different proteins on a different nacho, and there is a lot of barbecue. No, not at the same time. You gotta pay extra for that. But yeah, burnt ends of the barrel, brisket, that type of stuff on the nachos. But it's our number 1.
Very simple, but great option to pair with beer. You don't have to be too fancy. So let's look at the drinks that aren't beer right now. Andrew, let's start with you on this one, because you're doing quite a bit. I mean, you're making your own cider, you've got wine. When and why did you start to do all this?
Same thing that we're all talking about. We want to control the experience, and so if we're a little cocky, and so we think we do everything really well. And so we were like, we made a great cider, and we're like, we should continue making this. We made a great seltzer, we're like, we should continue making this. It's not always the smartest thing, but we really feel strongly that we should have our locations make our product. So we're lucky enough to have enough production to be able to sneak in a cider batch from once in a while, which is completely great and awesome to do in New York State, because we have great products here to do it with, and it's fun actually, because it's something different to try for the brewers and challenge. Seltzer was really easy to make for us. If anybody wants any seltzer base, it's easy to buy. That's the best way to do it. But I think, with the overall thought is that we just want to control the experience and have the best product we possibly think we can.
What was the thought process like before you started doing it? Were customers asking for those products? What motivated you to kind of take the next steps?
It was right before the pandemic, and we realized that if 60% of the people are actually beer drinkers coming into the location, hopefully, that are the people that weren't waiting in line that want beer. If they're bringing their wife in, or their husband, whatever it might be, we realized they aren't drinking beer. They were like, oh, do you have anything light? And we're like, yeah, we have a Pilsner. And they're like, no, like wine or something. And we're like, no. And we just did the evolution where we needed more products to sell. So we went into seltzers, we went into ciders, we have draft cocktails, which we could do a whole nother panel about, which has been incredibly successful for us as well. We do 2 to 4 draft cocktails at a time. Super simple stuff, very easy to make, and the margins are great. We did that, and we have our own wine as well, partnered with Nathan Kendall and the Finger Lakes. So we just started evolving to ourselves and realized the more people came in, the more they wanted that wasn't beer.
Dawn, how about you? You have cocktails and quite a good mix there as well.
Yeah, the pub was easy. We started as a full service pub, so we always had other beers. We always had other full spirits. We do everything there. So that was easy. When we opened the second location, we said we'll do nothing but our own beer. We're a brewery. Why are we selling anything but our own beer? It worked for about a week, and we added on wine, we added on seltzer, we added on everything that you could possibly imagine. We added on sodas. Last year I finally gave in and we did the wine slushy machine, which is the most number one selling drink in our tap room. And
Buy a slushy machine.
above our own beer, and the most profitable. Of course, the machine broke, so now we have to get into that big investment again, but yeah.
Is that a moral dilemma for you? Because all of you opened up breweries to sell beer, because that's what you were passionate about. So now you're selling wine slushies. And we'll dive into a little bit how you get your staff excited about that. But how are you getting excited about that? How do you feel and how do you understand that, okay, this is important to our guests, I have to go all in?
Yeah. My joy in all of this really is customer service. I do like making customers happy, and so I am okay with whatever they want. It does bother me a little bit that they would pick something over our beer. I can't lie. But at the end of the day, I like money. And I'm okay with that.
So let's dive into continued education, because when you're bringing out new products, whether it's food, wine slushies, cocktails, your wine, RTDs, whatever it may be, you need to be able to explain it to the guest. And why is continued education for both your guests and your staff a necessity? And let's start with your guests. It's like, why do you believe it's so important to provide an experience that's teaching them something, whether about your story, your products? Why is that's something you're passionate about? Well, you can go first.
All right, sure. I don't know. I think it stems. I think I should back up a little bit and just say that it really stems with the education of your staff. Even though I'm sort of piggybacking off of what we just said there, but it's staff first, and because they're your first line of defense when you're talking with when they're greeting the customer and everything like that. So having them educated is super important. We go really above and beyond, I think, what we need to do, but it seems to be working. We have a Discord dedicated strictly to Taproom members. We have a Slack dedicated to that. We do a Word document that shows what the beer is, what it should look like, what it should taste like. And all of this information goes out to our beer tenders and our staff members, taproom managers, every single week. And I've even gone so far as to create a separate Instagram private group that our bartenders are part of. And every Thursday I will show up on site at the Richmond and I will give them the TLDR about the new beers. It's a quick video snapshot of me basically getting a drink of free beer and speak a little bit about the beer just to the staff so that they know maybe these are our hand-selected hops that we went out to Yakima and grabbed. Maybe this is a super special Fruit, like an Alfonso mango that we were able to procure. But getting them that little bit of education is that first impact, because as much as we would all love to be there to greet every single one of our customers and to just serve them beer and make them feel special, it's just not possible. We all have lives, we all have businesses to run. It's super important for us to train that staff and get those guys ready and give them all the information and all the tools that they're going to need. And we found out that between those pieces, they seem to work very, very well so far.
How do you make them watch your videos?
I don't know.
They don't get into those, they swipe right by.
Swipe right.
Oh, that Paul again?
Yeah, we don't want to see that guy. No.
Staff training is actually a super touchy subject for us. I think it starts with pre-shift meetings. I think it starts with constant information coming at them, at our staff. The problem is getting it from people's heads, the brewers, the managers, into the people who are actually doing the service. We have several back-end systems that we communicate through. We use Basecamp for general posts, so every Monday, Monday about 2 o'clock, there's a post that comes out that goes through all the beers that are being released for the week, how they should be put into the POS, what are the tasting notes, the prices, all the general information, the nuts and bolts that someone would need. So someone before their shift could quickly scan this and know everything that's going to happen for the week. What we've found though is that only is the skeleton. We need to have more flesh on it, and that's where we've really pushed our managers to know more about the beers and to be more cognizant of what's going on. How our Nelson is different than your guys' Nelson, and how our Citra is special in its way, and how we don't get any Alfonso mangoes, but how whatever we're using that week. I think we're using a special type of vanilla in a stout coming up, and trying to educate our staff on that has been incredibly difficult. I think it stems from something we said earlier, which is hiring practices. We have had a great staff for many years, but they also get a little tired. We come out with probably somewhere between 12 and 18 beers a week between all the locations that are going through. So it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to keep up on. And I think making sure our staff is fresh and making sure that they're rejuvenated has been hard on us. And I think the big way we've tried to do that is to have constant little interactions with them and make sure that we're educating in a smaller way now, rather than having a quiz once a month being like, you need to know all this stuff.
I guess in terms of educating customers directly, a couple of the things that we do, or we do have we used to, and we're bringing that back, monthly beer club meetings. Anyone's welcome to come. It's free to $20. We do 6 different beers. We have a little bit of food. We have a kind of a topic. A lot of people have enjoyed that. We obviously post a lot about different things that we're doing, including Prison City beers, trying to keep them in the loop, keeping them educated. We have different materials that we hang around in the tap rooms that are staff picks or giving tidbits of information. So those are the few little things that we do that are kind of direct to customer. And then piggybacking off of what these guys said, everything that we do is really geared towards training our staff. We started out with that philosophy of, well, we'll have one big meeting once a month, which never happened. I think we did it once when we first opened 10 years ago, and we've had one since then maybe, because nobody can ever get together all at the same time, and so it seemed impossible. So what we instituted is, all the different platforms for different conversations, working with the staff, making sure that they're trained, for their specific jobs. But also, we did just put out a new survey for the employees as well. And one of the things that they're all asking for are employee meetings. Who would have guessed? So we're trying to institute, and it's hard because we all have so many hats that we wear, some kind of training program and doing, whether it be 5 minutes on Friday, that's the busiest shift, catching people in between shifts, having 5-10 minutes, and going over whatever we need to go over at that point.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about staff training and the importance of your team in a second. I want to go back to the guest side. So we're training your staff to engage more with the guests. Then what happens? Like, what do you see as a result of your staff being better educators? Like, how does that translate? Do you see greater sales, higher tab, staying longer? What are some of the benefits you all perceive? Or even the data shows?
Everything you just said. I think the staff members that have put effort towards learning and being more in the mix with learning new beers, being part of the process, learning about the wines. We do coffee as well. All those little things add up that they have better sales on their shifts. They have better tips. They have much better Google reviews. And then you can sort of see when the staff member hasn't put an effort into education, hasn't put an effort into learning more, it doesn't show up to we have monthly meetings and they're religious. They're, Thursdays at 10 o'clock, Thursdays at 11 o'clock, depending on the location. And you have to show up. And what we sort of realize is that if our staff wasn't putting the effort to just show up on a meeting that we are paying them to be at, they don't need to work for us. And that was really hard for us to come to the conclusion where it's like, if we're asking them to learn about beers and learn about small things, then they don't, and they can't do that, then they don't deserve to work here. And that's one of the things where we institute all this stuff, and now we are much more rigorous in how we view those sort of meetings. Because it ends up, they were making better tips. If they knew more about X, Y, and Z, they were making more money. We were making more money, but it literally translated to their paychecks in the next week. Hopefully it translates to us in a couple months, but so I think that's where the education was coming in. We could see that staff members that were having better education and showing up were doing better.
And the data speaks to it. Where my secret hopper having the data set of 9,000 unique taproom visits, and it shows that when a guest perceives the level of engagement from staff as high versus when it's low, when they're barely checking, and you're just going through the motions, the guest spends 30% more, and your staff making more tips because they're seeing higher taps. We got a question? 10 o'clock. 11 o'clock.
Morning. Before we did take a survey and we used to have our meetings at 11:30 on shifts, and it was too close to opening, and so our staff was really getting nervous because we're doing opening procedures and we're doing this and that. And I was like, okay, no problem. We'll push it back. We'll push it forward. What do you guys want? And they said, can we push it up? So we do a general every month. Every taproom does a general meeting for education and pushing the subject. So we, as HQ as we call it, puts through an incentive of we're working on hospitality this month, we're working on education this month, working on whatever it might be. And then that monthly meeting, they go through it, and then they have daily meetings for that to push through before the shift.
You find it's better to do it on weekends so you can get something?
I want to do it on Saturday because that's when the most people show up. They get really antsy about it, so I've met in the middle and we do it Thursdays.
Give your staff a survey. Ask them.
So how long are your meetings, and obviously you make it mandatory to be there, but was there pushback in terms of how long people had to travel for an hour or two meeting?
We do it, so I'll clarify, we do ours on Google Meet, so there's no excuse.
Okay.
If you're in-house, we sit you down, but the main monthly meetings are 100% on Google, and we expect 100% attendance. And it's just, since the pandemic, we've learned you can get something out of it. But we need you to, we need to show your face. You need to be, we need to be an active participant is one of the new keywords that we've been using on. So we expect people to be active participants in learning and educating, and then come in and try some of the beers that we have. Because we open every single beer we make, every single shift to try it. So
we've talked a lot about today, experience and education. I'm going to throw out a word we hadn't talked about in our breakfast session for this. What are y'all's thoughts on flights?
I think we probably differ. You guys even do
Good,
that?
this will be fun.
we go for it. I will tell you how dumb we are.
This is the,
Why don't you poll the audience first? Who likes flights? Okay, more than I thought. Okay, just curious.
We do flights, we love flights, we promote flights. I know they're a pain in the ass, and I know my bartenders bitch about them, but it is a way for us to engage our customers. It's a way for them to sample a lot of different things. People love them, whether we do or not, and it's an easy upsell.
We started with flights pre-COVID, and then COVID came, and then we got rid of flights, and then we just brought them back, literally 3 weeks ago.
How do you feel about that?
they hate me.
But how have you seen any increase in like spending?
Yeah, we actually instituted into our POS system a flight tracker so that we would be able to determine, how many flights we're selling and all that good stuff in the data, and try to compare that to some pre-COVID numbers. They're definitely on the rise. If you're offering a discount with them, we do that on certain days. We'll offer a discount off of a flight on certain days or at a certain time, basically, maybe a happy hour special. And then, for your Saturdays or your Sundays, we keep those at full price. But what we saw data-wise was, even if you're charging them full price for the flight with no discount, they want the variety. They want the options. I mean, we had done like 2 standard pours during COVID. You could come up and get 2 pours. And that was great, but we have seen a spike in sales go way up with flights because they're getting 4 beers. They might not even finish all 4 beers, but they love the variety, the option, the choice. I mean, we're in America. People want choices. They want.
We were adamant that we will never do flights. 1 year ago, we had a very deep conversation. We're looking at institute them. I think we do some ungodly number of them a month now. We have a flagship flight, which is cheaper, and then we have a make your own flight. And then we actually just instituted off of that Gen Z sort of information. We have a sort of a roll the dice and you randomly get 4 beers. We have like a 20-sided dice that you just roll and you get line 1, 2, 7, 9. Just for fun, because people were so indecisive coming up because, when you have 20 beers, 20 lines, it's hard to pick. So we had some randomness into it. But they've been incredibly successful for it. The bartenders do hate us, but they have turned a little bit of a corner, showing that they're going to make, they generally get $2 on a flight when we're charging $14 for it or whatever it might be. And they're like, well, it's, it's pretty much the same work to me doing a pint, I'm making it. So they do the mental math and they realize it's good for them as well. But it is, if anyone's not doing flights, do them. Convincing my 2 partners to do flights was very difficult, and I eventually won, and we were much better.
Flights, the kitchen in your new location, you're just doing all the work here.
You'd be surprised.
How do you feel about all those untapped check-ins from the flights? Don't answer that question.
No. I will say that I've got the rabbit hole of untapped data is amazing. If you're able to ever get any untapped data, I know it's pretty expensive, but if you're ever able to get some, it's incredible how much information they know. Untapped knows more about our consumers than anyone else in the world. It's unbelievable how much they know. But we did realize that most of our check-ins were actually coming off of flights, and that's when we started upping our glassware, getting better glasses, making sure they're poured correctly, going through proper procedures, because we knew that the beer nerds, the beer connoisseurs were checkers, tickers, were checking those in. So we put a little bit more towards glassware, made sure that the proper foam on them, made sure that they were a little bit presented better, so that we might get a little bit better check-ins, because now that we have to distro so much beer, we wanted to make sure that Green City, our like flagship IPA, when it was tasted in the taproom, got a better review, so that some Home D shop in Altoona, wherever, somewhere in New York, could put the Untapped rating next to it and it'd be higher, because all that stuff trickles through. Like Untapped, that's another thing. We'll go through.
Yes. The flights that he was talking about, when we reintroduced flights again for the second time just recently, we did take a page out of that. We tried to make them extremely Instagrammable, so we took all 4 glasses, we branded those glasses, big logos on there. So when they appear in the flight board, instant photo. We went ahead and spent the extra money to nucleate the bottoms of those glasses with our logo. So you're always going to have that, because people like to chat and stuff like that. And they're going to drink one slowly, drink another one slowly. This is going to keep that nucleation is going to keep that head on the beer for as long as possible and give them that best possible experience as they progress through the flight. Again, they said it before in the previous seminar that we were at, everything's a picture basically when it comes to a lot of our younger crowds coming in and looking for that experience. So that's super important that you take advantage of that branding and take advantage of doing those flights that way.
Good question.
I do have a question. Do you find that flights, maybe slow up your beer line and how does that contradict with your guest experience? And also, if it does slow down your line and you're trying to get people beer, is it an option to only offer flights, say, up until a certain time of day? Or does that hurt you?
You're gonna fuck with their expectations. They're gonna get real confused if they show up.
So how do you keep people
I-
from?
Yeah, so you bring up a great point, and you have a tap room sort of like we do, where it can be incredibly busy, from Fidens. It could be incredibly busy, or it could be really slow. Our Domino Park tap room, which is like on the water in the East River, is, we could pull off the name and it could be like Joe's Bar, and it would be just as busy. It's just a location, it's a great location. We're fortunate to have it, but we've realized that 90% of the people on a Saturday afternoon do not care that we're other half. They come in, they want seltzer, they want a light beer, they don't order flights, they order slushies, they order frozen Negronis, they order Aperol Spritz like it's like on an IV. It's so at those times we do sort of limit our flights. We don't advertise it. If someone orders it, we will help them with it, but we do sort of like pull back a little bit and not so that expectation is met if a beer person comes through. But that's the one location where it gets so inundated, we have to be careful with it because it will slow service up. But most of our other locations are busy, but we have enough staff members to be able to suffice.
Great. Very excited. You have a question back?
Yeah, I just have a suggestion for that, because our tap room, we've been there 18 years, and definitely the people that are coming in that want the flights are definitely younger, 30 and younger. That's basically the demographic. But we also have a sheet of paper that we give them when they walk in. Oh, you want a flight? Give them the sheet of paper and let them look over that for a long time. They check off the ones they want. That gives you time to take care of somebody else, get everything racked up together, and then they don't feel like they're not being taken care of. And sometimes they need extra time, because they don't know what they want. So.
Great advice there. And the data really speaks to the value of flights. When staff encourages a guest to have a flight, the guests spend 28% more.
Right.
So, higher tabs.
I hate them, by the way. Gotta do it.
Now, I'm going to shift it up a little bit as we wind down, and then we'll take some questions. Getting your staff excited about all these weird things you're selling these days, right? Don, you've got wine slushies. You don't really like wine slushies. How do you motivate your staff to be passionate about these? Like, is there any tips or tricks that you've done to get them to want you to sell more of these?
Not necessarily tricks to sell more wine slushies, because they sell themselves, unfortunately. But, things that we do to motivate the staff, we have a lot of culture. We try to, we're not teaching them or wanting them to promote wine slushies, and most of them love beer, but what we're trying to do is make them understand that the wine slushie and everything else that we're doing is part of what Prison City is about now. And so as such, we're promoting the Prison City culture, and this is why Prison City is so cool, and this is why you're working for us. And we do a lot of different things just to kind of promote the business and the team as a whole. And the more successful we are, the more proud they are of that. And so that's all part of it now.
The more money everybody makes.
The more money everybody makes.
Oh, I got this one. No, I got this one. I'll probably even cover most of the stuff you're going to say. So when teaching the staff, when working with the staff, I know that we got to speak as a panel a little bit before this, and sort of touch base on that hospitality and how to train your staff. You can teach them the how. Everybody in this room probably knows the how. The how is like acknowledging the customer when they walk in the tap room, giving them that smile, the eye contact, a verbal cue. You can teach your staff, that the beer knowledge, like we're focusing on, and we talked about a little bit earlier. You can also teach them how to polish a glass properly, how to present a beer, how to pour a beer, how certain beers are going to pair with food. You can teach them the how. Okay, that's not the problem. The problem is that they need to know the why. The why is you can't teach the why. And the why is pretty simple. It's because it makes an experience for the customer. It's because it builds on your brand and your reputation. It's because it makes them feel special. It's because it's not about you, it's about the customer. It's the moments like that that matter, and they matter every second. And there's a great show out there, I'm sure a few of you folks have seen, it's called The Bear. And I'm a massive fan of The Bear. There's an episode in season 2 called Forks. And that episode, I highly encourage you guys to go watch it if you want to learn what hospitality is and why it matters. Go watch that episode. It will change how you view your customers, how you view their experience, and all of the above. But again, that's the why. You can tell them the why, but either it's ingrained in them or it's not. Find people that it's ingrained in. You want to find those people who enjoy doing acts of service, who enjoy tending to the customer. And if you don't have those people, go and get them and get rid of the ones that don't.
I think just kind of piggybacking on that, one of the things that I think we all recognize as the biggest trend, maybe in Taproom's 2024, is customer service. And that's what we're all working towards with adding all of these offerings and doing all of the staff training and doing everything that we're doing. There's a great book by Danny Meyer, I don't remember the name, is it called Exceptional Service? Setting the Table? Yeah, Danny Meyer, Setting the Table, great book, and it talks about, at this stage of the game, everybody coming into our tap rooms is expecting good service. How do we train our staff to give them exceptional service? What are all of those little things that we as a company can do, and therefore train our company or our employees to do to give extra? What is it? Is it raining outside? Hey, we've got an umbrella for you. Let's walk you out to your car. Your French fries are not warm enough. We're going to take them back and we're going to make them hotter. That's an obvious one. I'm trying to think of just some crazy exceptional stuff. Hey, your car's parked and I see that your meter went out. I went out and I put a quarter in it, so you don't have to worry about it. Sit down and have another beer. Things like that.
Massive.
Where nobody's asking you to do it, but your staff is looking for those little tiny things that make a huge difference. Like Paul said, how do you make these impressions on your guests? And that's stuff that we want to try to teach our staff to take ownership in.
Yeah, it's truly the little things that make a big difference, because at the end of the day, no one in this room wants to be number 2. You always want to be someone's first choice to go somewhere. And over the past hour, we could probably talk for another hour more in experience, hospitality, all these fun concepts. We've thrown a lot at you. We've talked about data, strategies, they shared their experiences, and you've heard a lot of content from all the great speakers this week. And huge thanks to the New York State Brewers Association for putting this awesome event on. If you don't understand how lucky you are. I'm in Virginia. I came up here for this. You are very, very lucky to have a great guild. They do an amazing job. So the sponsors, everybody, huge credit to them. But you've taken in a lot. So we want to make sure there's just a couple things you remember from the session. So we're going to do rapid fire one more time down the line. Everyone's going to give you that one thing you need to do right now. So when you get back to your tap room, you have that motivation to put your efforts into something. And go first.
What's that
one takeaway for you?
Hospitality is everything. It's the business that we're in now. It's no longer it's no longer enough to make really good beer. And everybody in this room, I'm sure, makes really good beer. It's not about that anymore. It's about the experience and that hospitality that you're going to be able to give that customer that's going to keep them coming back. You need to get energized about it, you need to get fired up about it, and you need to make it a priority.
We have an internal motto that we want to be the best brewery in the world. And that is sort of buoyed every thought that we have when we're talking about our tap rooms, talking about our beer, talking about whatever. So when something comes across our desk or we try a beer that's not perfect, we sit there and go, is this the best beer in the world? It's a lofty goal, it's just a little bit, it's uncatchable, but it sort of gives us a backbone to think about, is this the best service that we can possibly get? Is this the best design we can possibly have? Is this the best social media we can best, is this the best marketing? That's really been helpful for us because that's given us a guiding light to be better. And that's where a lot of us, I think, are, where we might not be satisfied with our service, we might not be satisfied with some of our beer, we might not be satisfied with our locations or cleanliness or whatever, but now I can go into a tap room and be like, hey, your bathroom's dirty. This isn't the nicest bathroom on the block, let alone in the city.
Let alone in the world.
Let alone in the world. And I think it's been easier so that the staff looks at something and has something to glean onto and see, just be able to match our intensity with being like, oh, this is what they're trying to accomplish. Like, I'm either in this boat or I'm not. Which always goes back to my favorite, was it Cortez quote, where it's burn the boats. Like, you're either with us or you're not. And so that's what I would say. Let's just keep moving forward with them.
I think that I would just say that we all did this because we love craft beer. And doing other things doesn't mean that we don't love craft beer. Making good business choices, diversifying what we're offering, putting a wine slushy in your room, it doesn't take away from how much you love craft beer and how much you want your customers to love your craft beer. It just gives experience, and there's nothing wrong with that. And maybe it brings somebody in that didn't love craft beer before, and you get to teach them to love it while they're there.
One thing I would add, just always be curious. Be curious about your staff in the tap room. Understand what they're looking for so you can provide the best experience for them. That way, in turn, they can provide the best experience for your guests and encourage them. Just be curious about your guests. Open the doors to little conversations. Get to know them as people. Build those relationships, right? That's why we all come to tap rooms, because we crave that sense of community. We want to spend time with others, normally over the shared love of beer, but it opens doors to so many more meaningful relationships that we can all build. Now at this point, I know we're about at time. Do we have any moment? Anybody have any questions or thoughts or anything you want to shout out? Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Quick question, Ish. And I know this week has gone, we recently had people in your tap room, and safety is hugely important to our beers and guild. Do you guys find that it's something that's important to your customers, or they're not voicing that?
Safety?
Yeah.
In terms of personal safety or in terms of physical safety, like a compliance safety issue or yeah, like a safer bars and making sure that, I don't know that our guests are necessarily voicing it to us, but we understand that it's part of our culture, serving alcohol. And there is a greater chance that something will happen within an alcohol establishment for any kind of sexual assault or any variation of that, and so it is definitely something that we talk about with our employees. Making sure that they have observation, active bystander training, things like that.
Yeah, we do. We love safe bars. We do it. Yeah. If any of you want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it. It's a great. We do that, and we make sure we do it every 6 months or so, and we train all new staffs on it, part of our onboarding process, so that they're able to see situations that might not be good, head them off to the pass. But the major takeaway, honestly, with it is be proactive. You need people that are proactive and can see something that's not correct, whether it's between two people of opposite sex, people fighting, whatever it might be. Keeping attention to the room. That's what it really safe bars show to us, and that's what we go through our training.
Any more questions? Yes.
Real fast, the customer survey that you put out, I was just curious what your takeaways were on that, because I wanted to do something like that, but then I'm afraid if a customer doesn't see what they take the time to write, then they'll become disinterested. That if I want more IPAs, I want less IPAs, I want a horse and pony show.
I want a horse and pony show.
Just curious if you thought it was a good investment of time and resources.
It was free. It was free, and it took me about an hour to put together. And I did it through SurveyMonkey, and it's very easy. You can just create whatever questions you want. We were doing it specifically, in our case, we were doing it specifically towards the food program, just to kind of give us some general direction there. But you can put it towards anything. It could be about service. It could be about, what kind of beer do you like? I didn't feel like that there was any negative, because I think when people are filling out surveys like that, they understand that they're just giving you some data or some insight, and I don't think they're looking for an answer. So.
I would even suggest, if you have a free day and you're tapping to walk around with certain guests and say, hey, can I buy your next beer for answering these 5 questions, or whatever you could to motivate them to get a really diverse group of people where you can ask questions and get a unique data set, but ask them, because they're going to feel empowered that you ask them and really happy to share their feedback. Any questions? Well, we appreciate all of you coming here today. It's been awesome to share the past hour with you. Give it up for the panelists.